Hello, and welcome to today's webinar titled Building a Member Recruitment Team. Thank you for joining us. The target audience for this session is VISTA sponsors or project directors and sponsor staff who are directly involved in VISTA member recruitment. But regardless of your role within your VISTA project, we are glad to have you with us today. I'm your host, Stephanie Hunter. I previously served as a VISTA member and a VISTA leader, and currently I'm the Training Development Specialist with AmeriCorps VISTA headquarters. You'll also see our webinar support team, LSI, monitoring the chat throughout the presentation. And it's my pleasure to introduce our main speaker for today, Eric Powell. Eric is a VISTA member and a leader alumnus, and he currently serves as an AmeriCorps VISTA Training Specialist. Eric, welcome.
Thank you very much, Stephanie. I'm really grateful for my previous AmeriCorps VISTA service, and I love recruitment, so I'm excited to be here in my current role as an AmeriCorps VISTA training specialist. I work with supervisors, sponsors, and members, and over time have come to understand just how important it is to have people in your corner to assist and work with you on so many tasks, especially recruitment.
Great, thank you, Eric. And now that we've introduced ourselves, before we jump into our presentation, let's take a look at our agenda. So a VISTA project is only going to be as strong as the people you have working on it. So that's why member recruitment is such an important task for VISTA sponsors. And it's no secret that recruitment can be challenging. It can be a big undertaking, especially if you feel like you're doing it alone. So today we're going to cover 3 essential topics that will equip you with the tools you need to successfully build a high-performing recruitment team. So first, we'll review the key steps of the member recruitment process and provide a brief overview of each stage. Next, we'll identify the skill sets needed to support different recruitment tasks. Then we'll identify specific people in your personal and professional networks who could help you with recruitment. And finally, we'll discuss tips for successfully engaging others when you're building your recruitment team. So we're excited to share these insights with you today. So let's get started, and I'll pass it over to Eric.
AmeriCorps sponsors and supervisors spend a significant number of hours on member recruitment tasks each year. Think about it. Do you even have an idea of how many hours you and your team focus your attention specifically on recruitment? It may be so many hours that you can't count, or maybe your project is continuously working on year-round recruitment, so it is occurring all the time. With so many pieces involved in recruitment, in this section we will explore the member recruitment cycle and the different stages involved in finding and selecting the right candidates for your VISTA project. The AmeriCorps VISTA member recruitment cycle is comprised of 6 steps. Plan, creating a strategy, framework, and structure. Market, promoting and advertising member positions. Screen, checking to see if applicants meet the minimum eligibility criteria for AmeriCorps VISTA and for your project. Interview, talking with applicants and getting to know them to see if they are a good fit. Select, indicating which applicants you would like to serve at your project. And engage, staying connected with selected applicants before they start service to keep them motivated and in the know. Within each of these steps, there are a multitude of tasks that need to be completed by the VISTA supervisor. Do any specific tasks come to mind?
So now we would like to hear from you. So in the chat, go ahead and choose one of the steps in the recruitment cycle, which you can also see on the screen, and list 1 to 3 specific tasks that a VISTA sponsor or supervisor would need to complete during that step. We'll give you about a minute for you to respond in the chat. Great. Thank you so much for sharing your ideas in the chat. I'm seeing a lot of great ideas here, especially around marketing. I'm seeing things like developing digital marketing materials, contacting local job boards. I'm also seeing deciding who to send out information to in general. These are great ideas for marketing. Eric, what else are you seeing from some of these other steps?
I definitely love these ideas coming in. Like you said, a lot around marketing. I see quite a few around interviewing and screening, specifically saying action steps are confirming references, sending a written offer to the individual they select, submitting a nomination form to the regional office, even going into detail about evaluating budget and more digital marketing, networking with community members, which certainly ties into one or two of these, but could also apply to multiple of these steps. And I'll mention one or two more: filling out a VISTA assignment description, which of course comes kind of at the beginning of the cycle, and then more discussion around planning, just coming up with a structure and an overall framework. So definitely keep these ideas going. These are great. And now that you've listed a few specific tasks that a sponsor or supervisor would need to complete during that step, how do you move forward to building a recruitment team? Well, you move forward by taking a closer look at each of these member recruitment steps in greater detail to really understand what is involved and how you can get others involved. For example, during the plan step, some of the tasks you may be responsible for could include determining how many members will be needed for your VISTA project, developing a recruitment strategy, and identifying potential barriers that may arise throughout the process. The market step is where you may need to create service opportunity listings, advertise your project on social media, or create promotional print materials such as flyers or brochures. And if there isn't one already in place, you may need to also develop and manage a recruitment database to track all of the places that you've advertised and what results you've gotten from each. Then, when you get down to the screen step, as some of you mentioned, you may need to develop the specific criteria for identifying qualified applicants. You likely will need to review resumes, check references, complete background checks, and conduct initial screenings. Now, those are just the first 3 steps of the cycle. Take a brief moment now just to think silently on these 3 steps. Does one of the steps stand out to you? If so, why? Is it that you find it more fun? Maybe you think it's easier to do. Maybe it's more engaging. Are there any tasks within these steps that you are looking forward to completing? Set aside some time on your own over the next couple of weeks, and also with your future recruitment team, to take even more time to pause and deeply reflect on each of these steps, their importance, their impact on your project's recruitment, and the details within each step. So at this point, we're halfway through the 6 steps. Let's continue to look at the tasks a sponsor or supervisor may need to complete in the second half of the member recruitment cycle. We're going to start in the second half with the interview step, where you will need to develop and review questions for applicants, coordinate schedules among other interviewers and the applicant, and establish a way to evaluate applicant interview responses, maybe such as using a rubric. Once you're done with the interviews and you move into the selection phase, that's where you can expect to extend offers to the selected applicants, keeping in mind that you are extending an offer, but not a guarantee of a position, because the final official approval of applicants comes from the AmeriCorps portfolio manager. That's why we say you're selecting applicants and not hiring or approving. In the select phase, you can also expect to communicate to those who were not selected and outline what your newly selected applicants can expect moving forward. Lastly, once you're in the engage step of the cycle, you will need to communicate with selected applicants periodically to provide them the information that they need to know prior to starting service. Important things that oftentimes gets overlooked, such as the contact information for the direct supervisor and the address and location and time of where they need to report on their first day of service. Your engagement with them through and beyond their first day of service is critical because of its impact on the applicant feeling wanted and needed by the project, especially when they may still have other opportunities in the works. So it's critically important to note that there is no expectation for you to be an expert in all of the skills needed to complete these tasks. Throughout the member recruitment cycle, you will likely encounter some tasks that will come naturally to you and others that may be much more challenging. Taking time to reflect on your strengths, interests, and areas where you may struggle can help you assess where you may need additional supports in the future.
So now let's complete a short activity. So in the chat, you're going to see a link to today's worksheet, which you can download and then type into. So if you haven't already downloaded it, go ahead and do so now. So that way you can use it during this webinar and after the webinar. So for this activity, we want you to reflect on where you currently are in the member recruitment cycle and what your upcoming tasks are. In activity 1 on your worksheet, you'll see a table. On the left side of the table, you should list tasks that are aligned with your interests, your passions, or strengths. And on the right side, you should list tasks that are outside of your comfort zone and that you might need additional support with. So we'll give you a minute or so for you to write down your thoughts. All right, I know that was quick, but our time is about up for this reflection right now. So I ask that you try to finish up your thoughts for the moment and remember that you can always come back and add more to this later. But taking a moment to reflect on the tasks in the member recruitment cycle is a proactive way that can help you to more efficiently and effectively work towards your recruitment goals. So by considering the different tasks that lay ahead for your project's recruitment, you can strategically plan which of those tasks can be done quickly and easily, and which of those tasks might require more attention or other support from those in your networks.
Now is probably a good time to pause and remind you that while being a sponsor is a great responsibility, you do not need to do it all alone. It is possible to delegate some member recruitment tasks to others. So as the project sponsor, you still, of course, oversee the entire process, but there are people in your life, both personally and professionally, who can lend a helping hand and make this process a little less overwhelming.
So we want you to start thinking about your networks. Your networks are the different webs or groups of people that you've connected with throughout your life. This might be your family, your colleagues, your friends of friends, people that you once went to school with, or even people that you've met online. And just like you, each one of those people has their own set of strengths, their own skills, their own experiences and perspectives. And each of those can help you with different stages of recruitment. So just think about what you might be able to achieve if you're able to harness just a piece of the potential that you can find in all of the different connections that you have.
Now, as Stephanie just talked about your network, and you think about all the people in your network, can you think of anyone who specializes in a specific skill or topic? Maybe you have a friend who really enjoys graphic design and has an incredible artistic talent. Or perhaps an old classmate who now works in the field of human resources, constantly working with people. Maybe there's even an organization within your community that has a strong social media presence that you admire and aim to emulate. These are all great examples of people and groups who possess a specific skill that could potentially be leveraged to assist you in your member recruitment efforts. Taking a skills-based approach is one of the most successful ways to build a recruitment team. While all help is appreciated, Tapping into the specific skills and strengths of others can help you reach your goals more efficiently and effectively. For example, consider Jonathan, a member within your organization who runs a small business in his spare time. He has spent a considerable amount of time learning about marketing and social media strategy in order to promote his business. Jonathan has offered to help with some of your recruitment tasks, but it's really up to you which one he works on. Based on Jonathan's skills, he would likely be much better suited to assist you with developing a marketing strategy than he would with developing a system for tracking applications. It may seem like common sense, but this intentional step of aligning people's skills with particular tasks that you need help with, that is one of the most effective ways of delegating and assigning work. But what specific skills should you be looking for? There are certainly countless skills that go into successfully working through member recruitment, but for simplicity, we're only going to focus on 4 of them. One is project management, another is simply considered writing, there's one that we're calling graphic design, and the last but not least one is people operations. Most recruitment tasks that you are responsible for can be sorted into one of these 4 categories, even if you use or have heard different terms for these categories. Let me give you an example. Developing recruitment goals, creating a database to track applications, and establishing a timeline would all fall under the category of project management. Whereas such tasks, such as screening potential applicants and developing interview questions, would fall under the category of people operations or human resources. So while you may not know someone in your network who has detailed experience with creating a database to track VISTA applications, you likely know someone who is skilled at using Excel and might be able to help you get started. And if not, perhaps there's someone in your community who might be able to lend a helping hand. Brainstorming people who possess specific skills may require you to occasionally think outside the box. Let me show you what I mean. Perhaps you are a strong public speaker and you really excel at community outreach, but admittedly, you're not the best writer. You just finished drafting new member recruitment print and digital brochures, but you're really worried about the quality of your writing and if individuals will capture the intended message and the hook. You want to ensure that your brochures are clear, captivating, and concise. And you really want someone with strong writing skills to read through your draft and provide you feedback, but you're struggling to find someone. You realize that you may need to think outside the box. So what's the solution? Well, after thinking about it for quite a while, you recall that your local library offers free writing and editing assistance. While it's not the most traditional route for help, you soon discover that your local librarian, who happens to be a retired English teacher, is both skilled in writing and loves giving back to her community. Now you just found a perfect addition to your member recruitment team. And your local librarian is just the start. There are countless others in both your network and community that possess the skills you need to help with member recruitment. It's really just a matter of identifying who those people are and incorporating them into your VISTA project. In our next activity, we're going to brainstorm a list of potential people, specific job titles, types of organizations, or community roles that you should consider when building your member recruitment team.
So for this next activity, you're going to collaborate with the other folks on this webinar to generate a word cloud. So start by thinking about different job titles, groups, or community roles that align with the skills of project management, writing, graphic design, or people operations. To get started, you can click on the link in the chat, or you can scan the QR code on your screen with your smartphone. Then you'll be able to type in responses in the text entry fields to add your thoughts and click submit. We'll share the screen so that you can watch as the word cloud grows in real time with other participants adding their thoughts. And if you have any difficulties, just use the raise hand feature and our LSI support team will assist you. We'll give you 1 to 2 minutes to submit your responses. All right, so we're starting to see some responses coming in. I'm seeing some great ideas coming up here. Graphic designer seems pretty popular. It's a big one on the screen. We've also seen things like artist, editor, blogger, maybe a project manager or creative writer. Eric, what else is standing out to you?
Actually, we're getting a lot of responses so fast, it's hard to read them, but I see a
Yeah.
couple more around people who want to help. Certainly that's more broad and we can focus that and really think about specific people. I see organizer, someone who's good with structure and planning. And then the other one I see that's quite prevalent is an HR director or someone in that role of directing human resources, directing people. What else do you see, Stephanie? Any other words popping out?
Yeah, I'm seeing things around public relations and media, again, tying back to that idea of
Mhm.
marketing that could definitely be helpful here. Seeing, again, some editing, some grant writing blogger, things for text-based or writing-based things related to the project. And I'm also seeing a few related to people operations, HR, project management, HR director, career services, all could be really helpful for different stages of recruitment.
Definitely.
Well, great. It is great to see such a variety of responses, and I can see that folks are still adding their ideas here. So keep them coming. We'll keep those in this word cloud as we continue moving forward. These are all great examples of different types of people or different job roles to consider when you're building out your recruitment team. So thank you all for participating. Hopefully this is starting to help you tie this information back to your own VISTA projects. So you can think about ways that you can set yourself up for success as you figure out the potential people you might want to include in your recruitment team.
Yes, that word cloud was great. Thank you for participating in that activity. So now that you have identified the type of people you want on your team, it's now time to start drilling down and identifying specific individuals within your network that you may want to reach out to. For example, do you know anyone who has a job title similar to what was posted in the word cloud? Whose name specifically comes to mind when you think about these types of people?
So we're going to keep this activity going by returning to the worksheet that you started earlier in this session. So if you closed out of it or you need the link again, don't worry, we've pasted it in the chat again for you. So we want you to take a look at the table in activity number 2 on your worksheet. Because now it's time to start reflecting on the specific people that you might be able to call on to help you tackle your member recruitment work. So we want you to brainstorm and list the ideas of individuals from your own personal networks, your professional networks, or your community who could have some of the job titles that were listed in the word cloud, or who might have the skills that you need to support different member recruitment work. So this resource is just for you, and this is not going to be shared. So just make sure you save a copy of it for your records and so that you can continue working on it later on as you're planning your member recruitment. We're going to give you about 2 minutes for you to reflect on this and work. All right, so our time for doing this activity during the webinar is about up now, but we do encourage you to keep adding to your list once this session is over, so you can refer back to it whenever you need to.
We really hope that these activities are helping you start to meaningfully explore work individually and collaboratively, beginning from a slightly higher level and then going into particular details. Your individual and collaborative work are meant to be meaningful and really provide you a strong starting point for putting together a recruitment team of your own. While the most obvious reason why you would want to begin building a member recruitment team is the ability to share and spread out the workload, there are many other benefits as well. So let's start by highlighting just a few. One of the reasons is to have access to diverse perspectives. Having a team that brings unique experiences and viewpoints to the table is a great way to help make sure that your recruitment process is inclusive and welcoming to individuals from all walks of life. Next is increased creativity. Your recruitment team can generate new and innovative ideas for recruitment efforts that you may not have thought of on your own. You hear various suggestions, discuss pros and cons, and ponder current and new ways to find the right individuals for the positions. And finally is greater outreach. I saw lots of comments in the chat about community outreach. And yes, it is so critical to add members to your team to help expand your reach and connect you with a wider pool of applicants and others who can potentially help you reach your goals. While the focus of our discussion today has been on you receiving help, it's important to also be giving back whenever you can. So, I do recommend that you try to establish relationships that are mutually beneficial. Look for opportunities where both parties get something out of the partnership and support each other. Think about your unique skills and how they can be utilized to help others. Whether you consider yourself an expert in a particular area or not, the areas in which you excel and thrive can greatly and positively impact other people. So we've gone through a process of working with you to identify specific people within your network whom you could potentially reach out to for support with your recruitment efforts. Now we're going to take time to consider how to ask for help. Think about it. If you were to approach someone and simply say, "I need help with member recruitment," how do you really think the conversation would go? It could eventually go well, but that statement is so broad and not a very effective way to ask for help, especially because it ends up adding unnecessary back and forth communication to figure out what exactly you need. Instead, if you can identify specific tasks that you anticipate needing help with, your chances of someone agreeing to assist you greatly increase. So in this final section, we're going to share some helpful tips to keep in mind when asking people to join your recruitment team. We'll start out by saying, when it comes to asking for help from people in your network, it's important to be considerate of your timing. Make sure to reach out well in advance of when you actually need the help, and don't put them on the spot by expecting an immediate answer. Give them enough time to think about, follow up with you regarding questions they have, and get back to you when they can, or you can certainly give them a reasonable deadline. Now, I will admit, sometimes asking for help can really feel a bit uncomfortable. Perhaps it makes you feel like others think you can't do your job and you need help. Maybe it makes you uneasy because it feels like you are bothering other people. It could be that asking for help puts you in a spin thinking about what to ask, who to ask, how to ask, when to ask, and so on. To make it easier, we encourage you to plan ahead and really figure out what you are going to say, how you're going to say it before actually reaching out. That starts with deciding on a method of communication. Are you going to send a formal email or have more of a casual conversation in passing? Studies have shown that people are more willing to agree to help you when you ask them in person, but ultimately it's your decision, so go with your gut. Keep in mind that not everyone you reach out to will be familiar with the work you do or AmeriCorps VISTA in general, or they may even have assumptions about what VISTAs do. So I strongly recommend that you provide a short overview of what the program is and what the goals of your project are before you get into the nuts and bolts of asking for help. You never know when a mention of the mission, project goals, or anticipated project impact will touch someone's heart. Let's take a look at just one of the many ways you could ask someone to join your recruitment team. In a moment, you're going to hear an example of a supervisor reaching out to a member of their community, specifically the leader of a local art club, and they're asking this person for assistance with design and graphics for their marketing materials.
Hello, my name is Sarah, and I'm an AmeriCorps VISTA sponsor working on a community development project in the area. AmeriCorps VISTA is a national service program designed to alleviate poverty in the United States. The goal of this project is to increase access to healthy food in underserved communities through the development of a community garden. I'm currently working on creating flyers to attract potential applicants to the project and would like to see if you or the members of the Main Street Art Troupe would be interested in designing some of the illustrations that will be featured on the flyers. I believe that the expertise you and your team could bring to this project would be invaluable. Ideally, I'm looking for some custom illustrations that incorporate elements of health and nature. If this is something that interests you or the members of your program, I'd love to discuss it further and answer any questions you might have. Thank you for considering this opportunity to contribute to this project, and I look forward to hearing back from you. Best regards, Sarah.
In this example, Sarah does a nice job of introducing herself and the work of AmeriCorps before diving into asking for help. Her tone is friendly, and it includes some of the specifics of what she needs help with. This example also highlights a more formal way of asking for someone's help. Please remember that the nature of your relationship with the person you're talking to will likely drive the tone and the method of your communication. I do want to remind you that even though it goes without saying, I'm going to say it anyways, try to stay organized. If you plan on reaching out to multiple people, consider keeping a log to document things like who you've reached out to and when, what you've asked them to do, what their responses were, and any other follow-up communications or agreements. This is not just about you and the work you are doing, but it also helps others who are assisting you and anyone who may take your place when you leave. Having a communication log bookmarked on your computer makes it easy to keep it up to date and ready for quick reference. Some of these tips that we're mentioning, I really do hope that you keep in mind and utilize them the next time you are reaching out to someone for assistance. I do want to take a quick moment to reflect on some of the concepts that we've explored today. Whether you are a seasoned professional with years of experience in member recruitment, or you're a brand new person to the process, it's essential to remember that you don't have to do it alone. You could be pleasantly surprised by the number of people in your personal and professional networks, as well as in your community, who are eager to provide you with assistance and support, especially based on the skills that they have. And as you begin to assemble that team to help you with member recruitment, remember that you want to use a skills-based approach, which concentrates on identifying people who possess specific skills that align with the tasks you need to get done. Lastly, think creatively and consider unconventional options when brainstorming who you can reach out to. Take advantage of new and possibly unexpected approaches. I do like to offer next steps, so I'm going to give you a next step here in your learning. Don't let this be the last time that you look at the worksheet that you downloaded that accompanies this webinar. Take some time to return to it and continue brainstorming people within your networks whom you could reach out to in the future. Then, from there, go back to the first step in the recruitment process and make a plan to take it a step further. Take some time to draft your own email, perhaps like the one you saw today, asking someone for their assistance with a specific recruitment task. Don't forget to consider the audience. Who is receiving the email, as you likely want to customize parts of it for different audiences. This email can then serve as a template which you can reference or edit someday in the future.
Okay, so now we're going to see how well you followed along with today's conversation. In a moment, I'm going to read through a short scenario, and then a poll question will show up on your screen. We'll give you a minute or so to review the question and select the best answer choice. So let's go ahead and see our scenario. Omar is a VISTA project director who is working on member recruitment. He wants to write effective interview questions to ask applicants, but he's struggling to come up with good question ideas. Which of the following individuals would be the best person for Omar to reach out to for support with this task? Is it A, Maya, a colleague and a social media expert. B, Justin, a project volunteer and university professor. C, Samir, a newly hired AmeriCorps member supervisor. Or D, Allison, a project volunteer and human resources specialist. You should see your poll question show up in just a few moments, so select the best answer on your screen. All right, so I see our answers are slowing down a bit. So it looks like everyone has responded to the poll. We'll go ahead and close the poll now. So thank you for your participation in that question. And now let's review the correct answer.
So the correct answer to this question is D, Allison, a project volunteer and human resources specialist. I do want to say it may be possible, certainly, for any of these individuals to help write interview questions, especially if people are willing to assist. In this example, you may want any one of them to be part of the interview process based on Allison's professional background. But the reason why the answer is D is Allison's background specifically is in human resources, so she is uniquely qualified to assist you with this task, simply because human resources professionals typically have the training and experience necessary to compose thought-provoking interview questions and will also know which questions should not be asked during an interview. They also may regularly work with people and have significant knowledge about utilizing the right questions to help you make the decision about an applicant. One additional task I'd like to leave you with, you can explore now or after the webinar is over, is a recommendation for further study. This is a great resource titled, Are You Taking Full Advantage of Your Network? It's sponsored by the Harvard Business Review, and it provides some amazing and practical tips for building and utilizing a strong network to achieve professional goals, including effective communication and strategies for maintaining relationships, which also, as you know, ties in very well with recruitment.
I also want to draw your attention to a useful tool you can use to communicate with other sponsors and supervisors. And that's the VISTA campus. The VISTA campus has two sections. There's a VISTA training section where you'll access learning paths and modules for recorded webinars and materials. And then there's a section called VISTA Connect, and that's where you can collaborate and network with others. So take some time this afternoon to log into your account at learn.americorps.gov, and then click on VISTA Connect in the top menu to bring you to this page. You can create a new post or respond to an existing post, and you can share your ideas, your comments, your resources, and questions with other sponsors and supervisors. You can use Vista Connect to make intentional connections with others who can help you think of creative and new ways to build a member recruitment team. And your feedback on this webinar is important to us. We are consistently reviewing the content and trying to make it better for future webinars. So we want to know how we can improve this presentation. So please do take a few moments to complete the brief survey. We really appreciate you sharing your feedback. And we hope that you can join us for our next webinar, which is going to be focused on exploring the experience of your VISTA members. And that will take place on Tuesday, April 18th at 2 to 3 p.m. Eastern Time. We'll highlight how sponsors and project directors can learn general information about the member experience, as well as get to know some more information about your specific members' experiences. We'll talk through how project directors can orient staff to the VISTA project and to their VISTA members, and how to build relationships with their specific VISTA members. We'll also mention ways that direct supervisors can better learn more about what their specific members are experiencing and how that can shape and enhance their supervision. So when the registration link is available in approximately a week, you'll be able to log into your VISTA Campus account and click on the date of April 18th in the calendar. And as a reminder, these monthly VISTA sponsor and supervisor webinars are optional, but we do encourage you to attend the live sessions as well as review recordings of past sessions to help you in your role with your VISTA project and to help you connect with other people and resources. So now we have time to answer your questions. So please remember that you can post your questions in the chat panel. I'll look to see what questions came in so that Erica and I can address those. So when it comes to forming a member recruitment team, what questions do you have? And Eric, I see one in the chat to get us started. So if we've already got an interested applicant, maybe someone who hasn't applied yet but is interested, what could the next steps be?
This is actually a great question, and a lot of the answer depends, but I'll try to give a brief overview without taking 3 hours. So first, the next step is definitely to communicate to the individual. And I would say, give them a little bit of detail as to if your project is still recruiting, let them know that. But it could be that maybe you filled all your spots and you're wondering, what should you tell them? But assuming that your project is still recruiting, trying to interview and select applicants, first communicate to them. And as we said earlier, start with a very, very brief overview of what AmeriCorps and VISTA are and the mission of your project, because you don't, just because they are interested or maybe they submitted an application, don't always assume that they know all the details, because we've seen plenty of times where people submit applications and they get to the interview process and they're surprised at some of the simple details. So the next step is communication with them, and that's when you'll find out more about them to determine if you think they'll be a good fit, if you want to actually go forward with a formal interview process and have them submit an application, or if you think they're not well suited for your organization and maybe you can refer them elsewhere. Stephanie, let me turn it back to you to see if you had any additional comments to that question. It's a great question about what do we do if we have someone who's interested in our VISTA project.
Yeah, Eric, you shared some really great ideas about this question. I think I would add, if your project has the support of a VISTA leader, you might be able to utilize your VISTA leader to help work with that interested applicant to help guide them through those next steps as well. All right, so I'm taking a look through our questions here, and there was an earlier question about using some type of evaluation or rating tool during an interview to help keep track of applicants. Eric, what ideas do you have for ways that folks could potentially develop a way to track or stay organized with their ratings of applicants they're interviewing?
I've certainly done quite a few interviews, and I've seen just how powerful having a rubric or a rating tool can be. And this goes back to our earlier conversation of don't feel like you have to do everything on your own or create everything on your own. Certainly there are existing rating systems online that you can adapt, but essentially you want to look at what are the critical elements you need from your VISTA member in the interviews. And so if you have one and you adapt it, and certainly to anyone on this webinar, if you have a tool you use, feel free to add that in the chat because this is part of us resource sharing and communicating with each other. But I would definitely say if you're able to put together one or develop one, it's really useful so that for each, let's say you do an interview and there's 5 questions for the interview. It's helpful to have a rating system for each question, whether it's a scale of 1 to 3 or a rubric that outlines, here are the 3 elements to this question that we're looking for. A bare minimum answer gives us this, an average answer gives us that, and a great answer gives us that. So that way, when you or anyone who are reviewing the interviews, you're not basing it subjectively on, oh, I like this person or I don't like this person, but you're literally saying the question asks about this person didn't answer this question, so therefore this is their evaluation. So I strongly do recommend, if possible, to have an evaluation tool or rating system because it does help keep everything honest and structured, and it makes it more consistent for the future.
Yeah, great ideas there, Eric. I think I'd also add that asking consistent questions across applicants can help with this. So if you've built a set rating system or evaluation tool that you're comparing apples to apples, you're asking the same questions across all applicants, especially if you have multiple people on your team who are involved in the interview, it can help to debrief what each person's ratings were, what their thoughts are on an applicant. So that way you can organize or rank who you think your best candidate might be for the position you're interviewing for.
Definitely.
Great. I see the last few questions coming in. So Eric, I see one that's asking, what is the right number of people to have on the recruitment team? I think that's a really interesting question. So I'll turn that one to you.
It's a great question. And I'm laughing because in a good way, I saw earlier in the session, I think someone had said, oh, I'm happy to have as many people help with recruitment as possible. And on one hand, I totally agree. People are great and interviews I think they're wonderful. However, when you really think about an interview, there's also that question of too many cooks in the kitchen. And it's not just too many people, but it's also, do those people know what their roles are? So in short, there's no exact number. I'm not going to say you should have 3. I'm not going to say you should have 5 or 10. But you do want to keep in mind the specific tasks involved in each recruitment step. And because you are overseeing the entire member recruitment process as the VISTA sponsor, that means you are also overseeing anyone that you add to your recruitment team. So if you have 5 people, you're managing 5 people. If you have 1 person, you're managing 1. So I would say, keep in mind, are there people who have specific skills that could fill multiple roles on the recruitment team? For example, maybe someone in your organization or in the community has experience with human resources as well as marketing. That could be a good person to add to your team because they can fill both of those roles and really help look at how can you pull people in and interview them. So there is no finite answer in terms of the right number. That will depend on each project, and to a certain extent, that will depend on each VISTA sponsor and project director. I will say from my experience, I have personally seen it to be very effective when there is a minimum of 3. I don't really look at a maximum, but at least with 3 different people, instead of having, if you have 1, everything comes from that 1 person, but having multiple people on the team, you get different perspectives, people take notes differently, but also there's different eyes on each individual from different lenses of the VISTA project. So it really helps give you a different perspective on each interview candidate or applicant. Yeah, Stephanie, great. Based on, I know you've had some interview experience, do you have a recommendation?
Yeah, no, Eric, you shared a bunch of really great ideas. And I really do think that the answer to that question is going to depend on the size of the VISTA project and the type of VISTA project that it is. So I agree that there's no one right or wrong answer here about how many people should be involved. But I think something that's important to think through is, the kind of what we walked through in some of the activities today. Which tasks are you feeling confident in? Where do you need that support? And being able to figure out how many people to involve in your team based on what strengths the team already has versus where it could continue to grow. Great. So I think we have time for one more question. So I'm going to go ahead and ask, I saw a question, someone was asking about documents or information that should be included in a VISTA recruitment packet. Eric, who might a sponsor want to talk with or involve to figure out what kind of material to include to share with a potential applicant?
It's a great question. I would say first, if your organization or your VISTA project has, for example, a human resources manager or a human resources office, they would at least be able to give you a high-level overview from an interview perspective of what documents are important to have in general. Theirs may not be specific to the VISTA project, but in general, what's critical to have. You also may be able to get some information from your portfolio manager. They won't specifically help you with a recruitment task at your project since that's project specific, but they can give you their expertise and their experience. And then I would also just say from your experience, whether you're a brand new sponsor focused on recruitment or whether you've been doing this for a long time, it's good for you to think about what information is needed. Obviously, we talked about a rubric or an evaluation metric for the interviews. You'll need documented questions, as Stephanie said, so you can ask each applicant the same questions. And there's just a few other things to make sure that you're kind of trying to follow the same process, which not only makes the process consistent, but it makes it so much easier the next time you have to do a recruitment cycle. You already have information in place. You may need to tweak one or two documents, but everything is pretty much set for the next go around.
Great ideas there, Eric. I think I'd also recommend, when you're thinking about what information or what documents to share with a potential applicant, if your project already has a VISTA member or a VISTA leader, or maybe you've networked with another project in your area, it might be helpful to ask that VISTA member what information would they have liked to know as part of their process of applying or getting started with the project. That could be another person to involve in your recruitment team is a currently serving member or leader, and get their perspective involved to figure out what the right information to share could be. All right, so I see the chat slowing down a bit, so I think that might be all of the questions that we have for today. So I think we're going to go ahead and move forward because that will conclude today's presentation. So we want to extend a big thank you to everyone who's serving as a VISTA sponsor or supervisor. We appreciate your participation in today's webinar. We encourage you to stay connected through the VISTA campus and VISTA Connect and to attend future webinars with us. We hope that we'll see you again soon. This is the end of today's webinar, and we appreciate you being here.